The lightning split the sky like God's own judgment, and Sarah Hartwell pressed her back against the kitchen window, watching the stranger's silhouette move through her dying cattle. Thunder rolled across the valley, but it wasn't the storm that made her hands shake. It was the way he knelt beside each fallen steer, examining something she couldn't see from the house. "Get inside, before it's too late," he'd said when he'd knocked 20 minutes earlier, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd seen too much death. She hadn't listened then, hadn't trusted the weathered man with the cavalry scar running from his left ear to his jaw. But now, watching him work methodically through her herd in the driving rain, she wondered if she should have. Sarah had been alone on the Broken Creek Ranch for 8 months since tuberculosis took her husband. The isolation had hardened her, made her suspicious of every drifter who knocked asking for work or shelter. This one was different, though. When she'd cracked the door, he hadn't asked for anything, just warned her about something he called the sickness spreading through the territory. Another flash illuminated the pasture, and she counted 7 dead cattle now. Yesterday there had been 3. The day before, just one, old Bessie, who she'd assumed died of age. But the pattern the stranger traced with his finger in the mud told a different story. He stood slowly, water streaming from his hat brim, and turned toward the house. Even through the rain and darkness she could see the grim set of his jaw. He'd introduced himself as Marcus Webb, said he'd been a veterinarian before the war changed everything, claimed he'd been following this sickness for 3 weeks, watching it jump from ranch to ranch like wildfire. Sarah had heard whispers in town about the Henderson place going under, the Morrison family packing up sudden-like, but she'd figured it for bad luck or rustlers. The kitchen door rattled under his heavy knock. "Mrs. Hartwell, you need to let me in. What's killing your cattle? It don't stop with livestock." Through the glass she watched him wipe something dark from his hands. In the lamplight it looked almost black, like blood, but wrong somehow. Thicker. The thunder crashed again, closer this time, and in that moment of brilliant light she saw his eyes. They held the kind of fear that came from knowledge, the terrible certainty of someone who'd seen this before. Sarah's fingers found the door latch. Whatever was out there in the storm, whatever had taken her cattle, this man knew its name. Section 2, Moral Decision. The door swung open, and Marcus Webb stepped into her kitchen, bringing the smell of rain and something else, something medicinal and sharp that made her stomach turn. Water pooled around his boots as he pulled off his hat, revealing iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "How many head you lose today?" he asked, not bothering with pleasantries. 4 since morning." Sarah backed toward the stove, keeping distance between them. "But cattle die. Happens not like this." He reached into his coat and pulled out a glass vial filled with the same dark substance she'd seen on his hands. "This is what's left when the sickness takes hold. Blood that won't clot, organs that turn to soup. I've seen it take a 1,000-pound bull in 6 hours." The vial caught the lamplight, and Sarah's breath hitched. Inside the glass something seemed to move, not liquid exactly, but not solid either. "What is it?" "Don't rightly know. Started showing up after that meteor shower 3 weeks back. Pieces of rock scattered across the territory, and wherever they landed." He set the vial on her table with careful hands. "Mrs. Hartwell, I need you to understand something. This ain't just about your cattle. The Morrison family, they didn't pack up and leave. I found what was left of them in their root cellar." Sarah's hand flew to her throat. She'd known the Morrisons for 15 years, watched their children grow. "You're lying." "I wish I was." His voice carried the weight of terrible truth. "The sickness, it changes things, makes them hungry in ways that ain't natural. Your husband, how long's he been gone?" 8 months. Tuberculosis took him, same as it took half the territory that winter. Marcus studied her face in the lamplight, measuring something she couldn't understand. "Ma'am, I followed this trail from the Henderson place to the Morrisons, then here. Found pieces of that meteor rock at each location, buried shallow in the pastures. Someone's been planting them deliberate-like." Thunder shook the house again, and the oil lamp flickered. In that moment of dancing shadows, Sarah saw something in his expression that made her blood run cold. "You think someone's doing this on purpose?" "I know they are. Question is whether you're the next victim or part of the plan." His hand moved to rest on the gun at his hip, not threatening but ready. "Your husband's grave, when did you last visit it?" The question hit her like a physical blow. She hadn't been to the cemetery since the funeral, couldn't bear to see Samuel's name carved in stone. Why would you ask that? Because according to the county records, tuberculosis victims get buried in the far corner, away from the others. But the meteor fragments, they seem to call to dead things, make them restless. His eyes never left her face. Mrs. Hartwell, I need to know, has anything been digging around your property lately? Any strange sounds at night? Outside, the wind howled louder, and Sarah realized the thunder had stopped, but something else had taken its place. A rhythmic sound like footsteps on the porch, slow and deliberate. Marcus heard it too. His hand closed around his gun grip. Mrs. Hartwell, he whispered, when exactly did your husband die? Section 3. Danger arrives. The footsteps stopped directly outside the kitchen door. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs as she stared at the wooden barrier that suddenly felt paper-thin. The sound hadn't been right, too heavy, too slow, like something dragging itself forward with great effort. Marcus moved to the window, peering through the rain-streaked glass. His face went ashen. Ma'am, I need you to tell me exactly when your husband passed. The date, the time if you remember it. February 15th, just after midnight. The words came out as a whisper. Why does it matter? Because that thing on your porch ain't walking like a living man. He backed away from the window, gun drawn now. The sickness, it don't just kill. Sometimes it brings things back wrong, real wrong. A sound like fingernails dragging across wood came from the door. Long deliberate scratches that made Sarah's teeth ache. She pressed her hands to her ears, but the sound seemed to come from inside her skull. Samuel died in winter, Marcus said, his voice tight with growing understanding. Ground was too frozen to dig proper. Where'd they bury him? The root cellar. Temporary, until spring thaw. Sarah's voice broke. We were going to move him to the cemetery when the ground softened, but then I got sick myself, and there was so much to handle with the ranch. The scratching stopped. In the silence that followed, they could hear breathing, wet, labored sounds that no living thing should make. Marcus grabbed the oil lamp and moved toward the back of the house. We're leaving, now. He caught her arm, pulling her toward the rear door. Whatever's out there, it ain't your husband anymore. The meteor rock, it gets into dead tissue, changes it, makes it hungry. But if it's Samuel, it ain't. His grip tightened. I seen what this thing does to people, ma'am. It wears their faces, uses their memories to get close. Then it feeds. The front door exploded inward with a sound like breaking bones. Sarah screamed, spinning toward the noise, and saw something that made her mind rebel against believing. It had Samuel's face, Samuel's clothes, but the skin was wrong, too pale, too loose, like it didn't quite fit. Dark veins ran beneath the surface, pulsing with that same black substance from Marcus's vial. Sarah, it said in her husband's voice, but the words came out wet and wrong. I've been so cold, so hungry. Marcus shoved her toward the back door, but it was too late. The thing that wore Samuel's face moved faster than anything dead should move, blocking their escape. Its eyes, God, its eyes were still Samuel's blue, but there was nothing human behind them anymore. 8 months, it continued, head tilting at an unnatural angle. 8 months I've been waiting for you to visit, to bring me home. Marcus raised his gun, but Sarah caught his arm. Don't, please. It's still him, somehow. The creature smiled with Samuel's mouth, and black liquid dripped from between its teeth. She understands. We can be together now, Sarah. Forever hungry, forever cold. Outside more sounds arose, shuffling footsteps, voices calling in tones that had once been human. Through the shattered doorway, Sarah saw shapes moving in the storm. The Morrison family, the Hendersons, others she didn't recognize, all wearing faces of the dead, all with those same black veins pulsing beneath gray skin. The whole territory, Marcus whispered. Sweet Jesus, it's taken the whole territory. Section 4, Human Connection. Samuel. Sarah stepped forward despite Marcus's restraining hand, her voice breaking with 8 months of grief. Samuel, it's me. Do you remember our wedding day? You carved our initials in the oak tree by the creek. The thing wearing her husband's face paused, its head tilting like a curious animal. For a moment something flickered behind those blue eyes, a spark of recognition that made Sarah's heart leap with desperate hope. The oak tree, it repeated slowly. She S plus SW forever and always. The words came out clearer now, less wet. You wore your mother's dress, said you felt like a princess. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. Yes, yes, that's right. And you were so nervous you dropped the ring during the ceremony. Reverend Patterson had to help you find it in the grass. Marcus kept his gun trained on the creature, but uncertainty flickered across his face. Ma'am, don't I remember? Samuel's voice continued, stronger now. I remember loving you. I remember dying, the way the sickness burned in my chest. I remember the darkness after. The thing that had been her husband touched its chest with gray fingers. But this hunger, Sarah, this terrible hunger that never stops. Behind Samuel, the other creatures had gathered in the doorway, men, women, even children, all with that same wrong look about them. But they waited, as if Samuel's presence held some authority over them. I fought it, Samuel said, and now his voice carried an ache that sounded almost human. When the rock fell from the sky, when it called to me in the ground, I fought it, but I was so cold, so hungry, and you never came to visit. Sarah took another step closer, ignoring Marcus's sharp intake of breath. I couldn't bear to see you gone. I was weak, not weak, grieving. Samuel's gray hand reached toward her face, stopping just short of touching her skin. The thing inside me, it feeds on that grief. It wanted me to hurt you, to make you like us. But seeing you now, remembering, he turned to look at the other creatures. Go, all of you. This isn't your place. To Sarah's amazement, they obeyed. One by one the figures in the doorway shuffled back into the storm, their hungry eyes turning away. Even in death, even changed as he was, Samuel commanded respect. How long do you have? Marcus asked quietly, his gun lowering slightly. Samuel's smile was sad and familiar. Not long. The hunger grows stronger each day. Soon I won't be able to remember why I shouldn't feed. He looked at Sarah with infinite tenderness. I came here to say goodbye properly, to tell you it wasn't your fault, any of it. From his coat pocket, he pulled something that made Sarah gasp, their wedding ring, tarnished now but unmistakable. I kept this, even when everything else burned away. I kept this. Sarah reached for it with shaking hands, and when their fingers touched, she felt the coldness of death, but also something else, the faintest echo of warmth, of love that even this terrible transformation couldn't completely destroy. I have to go now, Samuel whispered, before I forget again who I used to be. Section 5, Full Resolution plus Epilogue. Wait. Sarah gripped the wedding ring tight enough to cut her palm. The meteor rock, Marcus said. Someone's been planting them. Who? Samuel's face darkened with memory. A man, calls himself Dr. Meridian, says he's studying death, trying to understand what comes after. His voice grew stronger with anger. He dug me up, Sarah, put that cursed rock in my chest and waited to see what would happen. Marcus stepped forward, his gun forgotten. Where is he now? The old mine shaft, 5 miles north. He's got more of them rocks, more bodies, plans to spread his experiments to the cities. Samuel's form was beginning to waver, like smoke in wind. Stop him, please. We will, Sarah promised, tears cutting tracks down her cheeks. But what about you? Samuel looked toward the storm, where dawn was beginning to break through the clouds. The sun burns us now, real fire, not this cold hunger. It's the only way to find peace. He pressed something else into her hand, a small leather journal. Everything I remembered I wrote down, so you'd know the man I was, didn't die with hatred. Marcus checked his pocket watch. Sunrise in 20 minutes, enough time to reach the creek. Samuel backed toward the door, his form growing more translucent with each step. The oak tree where we carved our names. I want to see it one more time. Sarah started to follow, but he held up a hand. No, this is something I have to do alone. But Sarah, his voice was fading now, barely a whisper. Lev, find someone who makes you laugh the way I used to. Don't waste your life mourning a ghost. As the first rays of sunlight touched the horizon, Samuel Hartwell walked into the dawn. Sarah watched from the doorway until his figure disappeared among the trees, then turned to Marcus with steel in her eyes. "This Dr. Meridian, we're going to stop him." Marcus nodded grimly. "I've been hunting him for weeks. Could use someone who knows the territory." They buried the meteor fragment they found in the pasture, then rode north toward the mine. They found Dr. Meridian's laboratory filled with horrors, dozens of bodies in various stages of transformation, notes detailing his plans to create an army of the hungry dead. The fight was brief but brutal. Marcus put 3 bullets in the madman's chest, while Sarah destroyed his research with lamp oil and fire. Years later, when Sarah had remarried a kind man named Thomas, who made her laugh again, she would return to the oak tree by the creek. The initials were still there, weathered but legible, SE plus SW forever, and always. She never told Thomas about the journal hidden in her jewelry box, filled with Samuel's memories of their life together. Some loves, she'd learned, were strong enough to survive even death, not as hungry ghosts, but as quiet reminders that true connection transcends the physical world. On her last visit to the tree before age made the walk too difficult, Sarah found a single white flower blooming in the exact spot where Samuel had stood at sunrise. She smiled, touched the carved initials one final time, and whispered, "Thank you for letting me go." The morning breeze carried her words away like a prayer, and somewhere in the rustling leaves, she could have sworn she heard the echo of familiar laughter.